thank you. I am really glad to be here, and I deeply appreciate the invitation, and my thanks to the sponsors, OIC and the Center for Global Affairs and Peace Islands Institute. I also just want to take a moment to say that it's always an honor and a privilege to sit on a panel with the person I consider one of the key leaders in this entire effort in civil society, Bill Bentley. It is just a pleasure to be here with you, and also Sarah, with whom I've worked in the past, and all the other panelists. This week has a name. It's the World Interfaith Harmony Week. And it's a name that's intended to really draw on the power of religion and to remind us that it can be a force for peace. But this event talks about the role of interfaith dialogue, the empowerment of women, and how interfaith dialogue touches on the empowerment of women, and on how that can yield educational opportunities. And from my perspective, that is a huge mandate. And just listening to all the other speakers before us, we know how broad it is. So from my perspective, I'm going to reframe it based on the work that I do at the Tanenbaum Center for Interreligious Understanding. You've heard some of the themes that I'll be mentioning. They bear repeating. But my focus is going to be on a resource for empowerment, and that is women religious peacemakers. I'm going to talk about female activists, women of faith who every day are creating peace, who are breaking down barriers so that girls and women and boys and men can really be empowered. And so we'll focus on three things in particular. First, I'll introduce you to a number of religiously driven women who are already empowered, because I think that's important. There are empowered women, and they are having an impact. And some of them are part of Tanenbaum's network that we call Peacemakers in Action. You may not know most of them, but that gets to my second point. These women are not only critical actors, but if you want to go beyond dialogue and really build cultures of respect, these are the women who can help see that others are educated, that females around the world become self-sustaining, and that they fully participate in society. And my third point is really something we've heard over and over today, which is that you cannot talk about the power of our many different religious traditions and about empowering women without also talking about empowering men and helping them break through the norms that enable them to afflict women all around them. So let me start by telling you a little bit about our peacemakers. I didn't know that happened, but I'm very excited. What you see up there is a map where Tanenbaum's peacemakers work. We focus on relatively unknown individuals who are driven by religion to work in the deadliest and most contentious conflicts around the world. Over the last 15 years, we've identified 28 individuals. They're working in 21 different conflict zones across 4 continents, and they come from 4 different religious traditions. They are men and women, and they are leaders. Now, in many traditions, when you think of religious leaders, you're thinking about clergy. You're thinking about male clergy, often. But religion is a powerful motivator for people, and many of our peace activists are outside of institutional religious life, but they are important actors for peace, and they are people to be called upon. I want to introduce you to just a couple of women who are exemplars of what I mean by empowered women and resources for empowering other women. Sakina Yacobi. Sakina's from Afghanistan. She started her work in refugee camps in Pakistan in the 90s, where she was teaching girls and beginning to educate them through the Quran and literacy training. When the Taliban entered her country, she returned, and she established the Afghan Institute of Learning. It was targeted at girls and women, and the focus was on teaching literacy, human rights, and leadership through an Islamic approach. In the early days, her work was hidden. What she had were underground home schools where the students and the teachers would change the routes that they went each day and the time that they went each day to the schools. They changed the locations because they needed to be safe and they didn't want the Taliban to find them. These are risks that not every person would take, but Sakina did. And today, there are hundreds of thousands of women who can read the Quran and who have learned to draw on their holy text to prove for their families that they are entitled to be educated, to work, to be self-sustaining, and to have a strengthened position in their society. What I found particularly interesting in her story was not just the story of how she empowered girls and women. Sakina began to be known, kind of quietly in her community. When early on she was stopped by a young boy on the road and he said, "All the girls are going to school, what about me?" And that's when she opened up her work and her programming for the boys. Today, 70% of the people that she serves are female, but 30% are not. She's reaching the entirety of her society through the work that she does. I want to quickly introduce you to a few others. Jamila Afghani, she's also from Afghanistan. And Jamila had polio when she was a child. She became so depressed that her father put her in school, but soon the family began to oppose her education. And notwithstanding that, she persevered and finally graduated from university. She had to hide sometimes to do that, sneak out of the house, but she is now a social worker, and she too has established an organization in Afghanistan, and she's operating today in 4 cities. And not unlike, but done slightly differently than the work of Sakina, she's also teaching literacy, human rights and peace education from an Islamic perspective to girls, women, and to the community. She also trains women in skills in becoming economically self-sufficient. This is a woman who is educated, empowered, and sharing what she knows with others. But like Sakina, she also works with boys. So when she opened a library with the idea that women and girls would come and start reading, she discovered that they weren't coming. Only the boys were using the library. So what she did was, she created a special prize for every boy who was able to bring his mom and or his sister to the library to use the books. Everybody, that was a win-win. The boys and the girls began to learn together. But these days she's doing something that I think is perhaps even more innovative. She's working with imams in Kabul, and she's training them in Quranic interpretations of women's rights and about how violence against women is not acceptable in a proper reading of their text. And the result has been that in the last year or two, over 300 Friday sermons have been about women's rights. That's societal change, that's revolutionary, that is an empowered woman empowering others. I'm going to be brief, just a few more. This is Nazizwe Madlala Rutledge. She's a Quaker. She's from South Africa. She spent a year of her life in solitary confinement when apartheid was still being fought. But when she got out, there was a period of time where she was actually, and catch this, a Quaker, was actually Deputy Minister of Defense in South Africa. So what did she do with that responsibility? Well, she brought more women into the military, and she created policies that made it more welcoming, including policies on sexual harassment. Today, she's still working to make sure women have a voice. She's helping women move forward in the ANC, and she is working against sex trafficking in her country. And then there's Osnat and Najiba. Osnat Aramdafna and Najiba Serhan, a Jew and a Muslim, both from northern Israel. They met at a principals conference one day. Everybody was being called upon during the Intifada to try to do something about peace with their children. Each was principal of an elementary school. They were actually 15 minutes apart, one in a very modern city, one in an Arab village. They came together and they created what they call the project. They began exchanges with their students. The kids began working with the elderly together. The students began painting together and teaching each other their songs. They didn't always speak the same language, but they did learn about each other's humanity. And this included the girls and the boys, and created the possibility for change. These women are all religious women. They are women that I know and I honor, and I hope you agree that they are powerful and that they are having a powerful impact, taking the word empowerment and making it something very real in the lives of the people around them. They empower others, the men, the girls, the boys, and that you can find women like this in every conflict, in every situation. Women who, because of their beliefs, are driven to try to establish peace. They're powerful change agents, but our job and our responsibility is to learn how to identify them, how to recognize them, and how to work with them. It's not always easy. That's why at Tanenbaum, when we select our peacemakers, we have an active push for nominations for female religiously motivated peacemakers in conflict zones. We've also done something new this year that I am very proud of. We've determined that in every cycle where we select 2 peacemakers, at least one must always be a woman, because they need to be recognized and they need community and a network to help them be that much more impactful, both in their own communities and around the world. So it seems to me that this is not just an academic exercise or a conversation or just a speech. There are things that everybody in this room can actually do. You can help encourage interfaith, religious women peace builders. So you can help us by nominating a woman that you know from a country you worked in or where you come from who's doing this work, if they fit our criteria. You can forward the nominations forms that we will be disseminating and make that something that others know about. You can learn more about us. Oops. Not that. Well, whatever. You missed it. You can learn about us on our website. And also, we've started something new, which for those of you who like Twitter, and I confess I'm not one of them, may really enjoy. We have World Peace Wednesdays, and there's information throughout the day about our peacemakers and peace. So there's action you can take, there's things you can do, and it's really all of our responsibility. We can transform Interfaith Harmony Week into the Interfaith Harmony era, but that's up to all of us. So let me close where I began. Religion is a powerful force in our lives. Obviously, many religious leaders are men and are clergy, but many others are not involved in institutional religion or are involved but are not clergy. Those are the religiously motivated women and the religiously motivated men. Many of them can be and are resources for peace, resources for empowering women, resources for justice. We too often ignore them. We need to pay attention to them because when we don't make a conscious effort to note them, we do this to our detriment. When we look for them and find them, what we do is we ensure that we are not leaving out of the discussion and practice of peace building a critical resource for all of us. Thank you.